What the heck is base 10? What does this mean? What kind of activities can you do with it? I am going to tell you some activities that you can do with base 10 activities. I'll explain what it is and give you some really great ideas. Hey you guys, it's Christina from the Purple Alphabet. We are doing some activities today centered around base 10. If you don't know what base 10 is, don't worry, I'm going to explain that in just a second. But if you're new around here, make sure to click subscribe to see more videos like this. I do educational activities for kids, ideas and inspirations to learn through play so you can play at home and learn at the same time with your kids. I would love it if you were to join us. So go ahead and click that subscribe button. Base 10 activities are usually started as early as pre-K as an introductory and working your way on up to the elementary age. Remember, with any activity that I show you guys, please adapt it for the age and skill level of your child. And that's what's great about the Purple Alphabet, because you can alter things that will work in your house, different materials and different skill levels. Just kind of take that into consideration when you're watching. In this video, I'm going to show you some activities that you can do, plus some materials that you can use to help supplement. So what we're going to be talking about today are using base 10 blocks. And I have a set here to show you, for example, but some of these activities are not even going to include these blocks because you kind of need some framework to get started. This set came from Lakeshore Learning. I'm going to see if I can find some more to put inside my Amazon shop for you and put them in a whole kind of base 10 activity sort of list so you can go and look and see what there is available. But we're not going to use these for every activity, but this is basically what comes inside. There are 4 different types of blocks in here. And like I said, this one came from Lakeshore Learning. The recommended ages for this from Lakeshore is ages 6 and above, but you can start by using some of these concepts really early. I'll explain more about that in just a second. And since all these things build upon each other, I want to kind of go back and just remind you of some basics that you need to know before moving on to base 10 blocks. For example, a lot of this stems from grouping in tens. And so these are 10 frames. I think I have a whole video about using 10 frames in different activities and using them for addition and math and that kind of thing. But basically all of those fine motor activities you do as a toddler or in preschool and putting one-to-one, or otherwise known as one-to-one correspondence, is starting to teach the basic concept of a unit. So 1 equals 1 unit. The number 1 is 1 of something. And so this is basically what you're doing when you're working on all those fine motor activities, is that you're teaching them 1 to 1 to 1, and this represents 1. Furthermore, this represents 2, and so on and so forth until you get all the way up. Where the 10 frame comes into is it's a grouping of 10. So we know when this is all filled up, if we count all of our ones in here, this will be a group of 10. So these frames help you to understand what it takes to make 10, and we take that concept with us when we start to work on place value. Next, in kind of our journey of learning, once we realize what 1 unit is, we start to understand that if you put them together, you create different quantities. So for example, I have 5 units here, and when I put them all together, this now represents 5. These blocks are right now in the Target dollar section, and they are amazing. They're from Learning Resources. I will also put these in my Amazon store because you can get them online too. But essentially, this whole practice, and you can do this with toddlers even, and using mega blocks, the big mega blocks, and then you can have them put together units and start learning how to count. So for a toddler, for example, you could say this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you can start putting them all together, which is what they're going to love to do with mega blocks for the toddlers. You can move up to these blocks when they're preschoolers, and now this is 5. And then you can also make comparisons by breaking them all apart again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then this is 5. These two are equal. And so at the toddler age, this is very basic and something that you can start on working with them conceptually and then asking them to, can you do this? Can you put 5 together? Then make this. And with mega blocks, they'll probably just be stacking and playing, but it's starting to introduce the concept of that 1 unit and that 1 unit that can be put together with other units to make a large number like 5. So I wanted to make sure I pointed this out to you, so that how all of these skills kind of build upon each other over the years and how you can introduce it even at a really young age. So by the time that they are intellectually ready to start thinking about things in bigger numbers, they've already had that base down. If you haven't done that already, you can start there and see how your child works and how they can go all the way up to where we're at now. So I hope that makes sense. I'm kind of where we've started with these, where we've gone, and how to introduce them to younger ages, and then moving on forward. And I do have videos on these kinds of activities to sprinkle throughout my channel. I also want to mention that the Montessori method has a really great way of understanding units as far as they go in tens and teens. I did a whole video on this called Montessori 10 and teen boards. You can go back and check out. It's just a really great way for children to visually understand quantity when working with numbers, particularly tens and teens. So I highly recommend going to watch that as well. And the 10 and teen boards, I've seen even preschoolers use it. So it really does depend on your child's age. And it works with some beads that is very similar to our base 10 blocks that I'm going to show you today. So that brings us back up to the place value blocks. Now I purchased this place value block set pretty early on in the preschool level. And what was kind of interesting about it is that my early preschooler, she was maybe late 2s, around age 3, she loved to just play around with these and to build and to kind of explore them. And I really do encourage that. So although she wasn't ready to do most of the activities I'm going to show you today, she was experimenting with them, building with them, and understanding what they were. And she created little creations all on the floor of my living room. And to me, that was just a perfect introduction and understanding these blocks. So that now she kind of understands what they are and she's very familiar with them. They aren't that foreign. If these are new to your kids, I would also highly encourage letting them play around and build and create things with them as well. If base 10 blocks are new to you, here is basically what they are. You have these blocks here. They come in different colors. They're not always these colors. And these represent 1 unit. Then you have these green rod shapes. This is 10 units put all together. And so if you took your yellow ones and stacked them all up side by side, 10 of them, it would be the exact same size, which is great visually for children so they can really understand this concept. Then we move on to the 100s, and this is 100, so this is either 100 units or this is 10 tens, and then this is 100, and then we have the 1000 block. Now the 1000 block we're not going to work on today, nor are we going to work on the 100. So this video I'm just going to focus strictly on the 1s and the 10s, not to overwhelm my child. And this is actually what they're working on in school, and it correlates to everything that they're learning right now. And this is from my first grader, and my kindergartner is actually doing some activities with this as well. So these activities I'll be able to kind of work with them on the skill level that they're at. For the younger child, for the preschooler, I would focus on just the 1s for now and then see if they're ready to move on to the 10s as you progress. Because we're not going to be using the 1000 block, I'm going to move that out of the way, and the same with our 100s. Maybe I'll have to do another video on these some other time. So now what we have left over are our 1s and 10s, and just for sake of demonstration, I'm going to move my 10s over to this side. The first thing that you should always do with base 10 blocks is to get an understanding of that this is equal to 10 different units. So we know these are 1. We've been doing 1-to-1s for a very long time. Your child is very familiar. So now you need to make sure that they understand how many of these small little blocks go inside the 10 here. So I'm going to put 10 here, but I would actually have your child physically do this so they can understand and to see if they've got too much, too little, and to know that these represent the same thing. Just basically a visual comparison so your child understands, oh, okay, so for every 10 yellow cubes, it will equal 1 green 10 rod. Matching the numerals like this is very similar to another Montessori activity where you would put a flashcard and then you would count the 1-to-1 counters. I did this in one of my very first videos, and I taught this as early as a toddler. I know some toddlers aren't ready for this, and that's okay. However, this video is on my channel if you want to go back and get some inspiration from it. But this is an extension of that. So this is where it all started, they understanding that one concept. And now that we know what that equals, we can play a little game of making groups of 10. So they can take these 10 blocks in each section. I'm just choosing a pie muffin here to separate them out. Pie muffin, what am I talking about? A muffin tin. You know, it's so hard to make these videos sometimes and keep your language straight. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So basically groups of 10, right? If I had more space, we could do the full 10 of 10, but for sake of our activities today, we're just going to stick with the 6. Once they've worked on practicing and separating out the 10s, then I could say, okay, if you give me 10 of your blocks, I will give you 1 of these. So you're going to play a little trading game. And so they say, okay, so they give you your 10, and then I would give them their 10 here. And then you can say things like, okay, well, how many are in here? They say 10. How many are in here? Say 10. So that way they kind of get the idea that they're the same thing. And then you can play a back and forth game. Okay, can you give me 10 more? Can you give me 2 sets of 10, which would be 2 sets of green rods? And you can kind of go back and forth, gauging on their understanding of quantity here. And depending on the responses and what they do, then you'll definitely be able to tell what level they're at. And so you're playing this equivalency game of, okay, well, tell me what I have to give you from the green pile if you give me 4 of those muffin tins. And so basically really working on understanding this quantity and equivalency. Okay, so really take the time to understand how your child's processing this. Pay attention to what they do. Once they've understand the equivalency of this green rod to the yellow blocks, and you can move on to some other activities. I'm going to pull out my dry erase board, and I'm going to make a really simple, easy chart here, writing 10s on one side and 1s on the other side. And I'm gonna make it into kind of a little chart like that. In place value, we have to understand which number is the 10s and which number is the 1s. And so what I have here, I'm borrowing this from my Montessori activity, the Montessori 100 board, because it has numbers all the way from 1 to 100 written on these tiles. If you don't have these tiles, you can use other things such as printing them out and cutting them out. You can write them, but this is just really simple because it's already done for me. So when I present a number to my child, I'm going to introduce them to which number is the 10s place and which number is the 1s place. And so now I want them to get some practice in writing this on their own. And then they can write in their answer. I'll probably help them first. 7 is in the 10 spot, and this particular tile I pulled, 7 is also in the 1 spot. And then I'll probably let them pick another number because this is part of the fun of it. Let's try down here, 67, so 6 and 7. And then we'll just go through that way until they kind of get bored of this, because this one is a really simple, easy task for them to do. I'm going to pick a lower number here. What if they pick just this? Then I'll have to explain that there's only 4 1s. And 1 last one, a 2 and a 4. So you get the idea. So what we're doing is explaining the place value of just 10s and just 1s and physically writing it down on the board. All right, next I want to use my base 10 blocks to show the quantity of this so they can get a sense of what this looks like as far as quantity goes, because now they have the writing down. So I'm just going to keep one of these, the 24. So the first step would be to write it in so they know the 10s is a 2 and the 1 is a 4. Okay, so since we've already gone over what each of these is, the greens are 10s and the 1s are 1s, excuse me, the yellows are 1s, I'm confusing myself here, then they're going to be able to tell me, okay, I need 2 10s. Can place it on there. And now how many 1s do you need? I need 4 1s. So now they can see this in many different ways. 1, they see it from the number written numerically, 24. They see it divided out by 10s and 1s, and now they can actually see the visual quantity in having 2 10s and 4 1s. This process may seem a little bit drawn out, but I'm telling you, when you do this in many different ways, it really clicks in their head and they can understand what 24 really means. These 2 items, there's 24 little units in here and they can visually see it. It's great. And then you can repeat this for many different numbers. So I'm going to take away my numbers for now and erase my little makeshift chart. We'll come back to that probably later. Right, now comes a really kind of interesting way to do this. What if you provided your child with something a little bit more of a puzzle? So I'm going to say maybe 18 1s. This is just a different way to look at things. So you say, can you show me 18 1s? So they have 18 1s here. If your child's really organized, they'll all be lined up. In this case, for example, we're not going to line them up. So I say, okay, this is correct. This is 18 1s. How can you show this differently using your 10 blocks? So this is coming back to that trading equivalency game, okay? So now that they've learned that this is 10 blocks, they can take one of these and see by moving them, manipulating them, as they say. Okay, so there's 10. So now I can get rid of these and take them off. And I do highly recommend working with this and showing them an example. So then they say, okay, well, will this equal 10? And they can line them up and see that this does not fill out the bar, so they can't use this. Very visual example. So now from our 18 1s, we can say this equals 18. If you want to take it one step further, you could say this again. So now they have 1, 10, and 8 ones. It all works together. Let's try another one for a sample. Can you show me 12 ones? The ones, because I know these are ones. 1, 2, 3. There you go. There's 12 ones. They'll say to you, okay, how can I show it with 10s and ones? You gotta grab one of these. They're gonna line them all up. Get their 10 ever so carefully. And then now they know they can move those ones. And then they got the 2 left over. This is 12. That's correct. Show me it in 10s and 1s and they can write this in. Well, I've got 1 10 and I've got 1 2 1s. And there's the number written out. Yes, it is a tedious process. I will agree with you 100%, but this is a really concrete way to understanding this 10s and 1s business, you know? It can be very confusing. All right, so we got that. What about if we switch this around and moved it up one step further and just gave them a number? What if we gave them 34? You could say, what is the 10s? They say, you said it's 3. Okay, what are the 4s? 4. Show it to me with the blocks. Well, in my 10s, I got 3, so now I need 3 of the 10 blocks, and I need 4 of the 1s. This is 34. And then you can play around with different numbers. I would highly recommend using the 10s and 1s chart just so that they understand the 2 different places until they've kind of mastered what it means. Just the extra step seems a lot, but it really helps them understand written versus the visual. Just to kick things up a notch, because I like to vary activities and not just write things down. Sometimes a little extra added benefit helps. So you could do things like in here, I have a lot of numbers in here, but I have a mixed bag of numbers so they could actually maybe pick out the numbers instead of writing it down. So it's kind of fun that they get to pick. They don't know what number's coming up, and then they can work their problem that way. So they can do their 8 10s and their 3 1s like this. So using some numbers like that you can pull out, number flashcards also work really well. Using dice is also a fun option where you can roll. The only thing that I don't like about using dice is that they only go up to 6. So if you want to do numbers higher than 66, then you're kind of out of luck, which is where something like these dry erase blocks would come in handy. These are at the Target dollar section. I think I've seen them come back recently. So you can just write your own numbers on the blocks and roll them. This is amazing. And so I would look into something like this. If you wanted to make your own blocks, definitely an option. If you wanted to take your huge base 10 block and cover it with paper and write numbers on that way, another excellent way to do that. I just want to give you some other options because I don't want you guys to go and buy stuff that you don't already have. Uno cards work really well too. If you have a set of Uno cards, just take out all the cards that don't apply and just use the number cards, and then they can pick cards that they want to use, and that's kind of fun, picking them out of a deck. You never know what you're going to get. And then even playing cards, the same thing. This is a set of Crazy 8. It was $1 from the dollar section, but they're just basically a deck of cards. I don't know if I can even get them out here. Maybe not. And so you would just play the cards and they just pick them out and do the numbers that way. Just a little fun spin on things, so there's just not just the same writing them down. And it's kind of the luck of the draw, and they feel like they have a little bit more control over what number they're going to do. I really like that. You can also find some really fun tools like this one. This one's at Lakeshore Learning, and I've had it for a while. It was just under $5. I like that on the front it tells you the places in case your child forgets, and I like that it goes up to the millions. So although we're only working on the 10s and 1s, this could be a very useful tool. As you flip it open, as you can see, it covers up all of the ones that you probably aren't going to work on, which is great for just starting off on your 1s and 10s. If you're working with your younger children who are just doing quantity, then you can start over here. Say, show me 2, show me 3, and then maybe they're learning to say their number, so you could use the second tens column and you can say, this is 23, that kind of thing. However, for our cases, this is kind of fun to flip through, and then they could use that as their number choice as well. And then it works with you as you get higher, 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 higher up in the numbers. I'm going to try and think of some other ways that I think would be fun to use this. If you have suggestions, feel free to let me know down in the comments. And if you have this, because it's such a really affordable item to have, and I like it because it's very colorful and fun and engaging. I just like Lakeshore sure stuff. It's just a lot of fun. Okay, so that's another tool that is available to use. So I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that. I picked this one up quite some time ago, and I'm excited to start using it now that we are talking about tens and ones. If you are going to use something like this, a really good activity to do would to be kind of a 3-step process. So they could probably pick a number, or you pick a number. Let's do 22. You can do this with the dice or with the playing cards, any kind of those kinds of things. So the first thing to do is to find the number. In this case, we picked it from the chart. Make it. So you're going to make it with your items. Draw it. Drawing is a really great concept too. Just work some other muscles in the brain. You all know I'm not an artist. I say this every time you watch me draw, but it's a really great way for that repetition and learning the concept. And then lastly, they're going to write it, mimicking this, or you can have them say there are 2 10s and 2 1s, depending on what you want them to do. So a pick, roll, whatever you want to use for this step, a make it, a draw it, and write it. If you guys saw the Target dollar section shop with me and haul, you know that right now these learning resources place value discs are there. It's $3 for this little container full of these discs that have numbers on them. And I'm going to show you how to use them. You can also find these in my Amazon store too. We're only going to be using, and let me dump them out so you can see the different types they have. There's one for each place value spot all the way up to million. Like I said, we're only working on our 10s and 1s. So I'm going to pull out the purple discs, which are our 10s, and the light blue, which are our 1s. And there's more in here, but I know I'm not going to need them for this particular number. These would be great for one of those first activities where we were counting out 10 and then showing them with the 1s. So you could do some labeling like this if you wanted to and have a whole bunch of 10s. That'd be fun. But I'm gonna go back to this activity. Should have showed you that before. So our number is 22, and the 22 is what we're trying to do. And so if we're doing number 22, then we know we need 2 10s. So there's 1 10 and 2 10s. And we need 2 1s. Here's 1 1 upside down and 2 1s. And so this is equal to 22. So 10, 20, we do 122. It's just another way to visually show the same thing and can be a lot of fun using something a little bit different like these discs, and use this board and show, okay, now we have 32, and we can show how it changes. And now we have 42, and so on and so forth. Putting away the dry erase board, and I'm bringing out a notebook in this set, also from Lakeshore Learning. They are base 10 stamps. I really do like this set. Check this out. It comes in this little wooden container here. This was like, I want to say maybe $12, $13, about that. But inside you have your base 10, but in stamps. So we have our 1,000 block here, our 100, our 10, and then our little 3 cubes down here. I'm going to take my notebook because you can pre-make this, you can have your child stamp this if you want, and it's just a really fun kind of hands-on way of learning. Since we're only using these stamps, then we're slightly limited, and you can do this in a variety of ways. You can stamp them out for your child right ahead on some pages in the notebook. That ink's not showing. Let me get some other ink. Hold on, be right back. Let's try some other ink here, see if this works better. Aha, a little bit better. All right, so you can stamp out whatever you want. You can have your child stamp it out. You can have them write the number next to it. Super fun. So this would be 33. Or you can have them pick a number, roll a number, any of those things that I showed you, and have them stamp out the number. You can have them do both. I'm telling you, these hands-on things that actually makes them move are the best and the most fun. All right, so a really fun take on this. You can do so many things. And what's great about these is that you can actually begin to make math problems with them if you even wanted to, and to see if they can answer the math equation using the stamps. Very fun. If you wanted to, you can even incorporate the actual block. Maybe you pick out the blocks that you want them to stamp out and then have them mimic it. Lots of variations on this and a lot of ideas, and just a really fun way to learn. So now tell me, how do you guys use base 10 in your house? Let me know down below, or if you're gonna plan on using some of these activities I mentioned today, I want to know it too. I love reading your guys' comments. Make sure to click subscribe to see more videos like this, and give me a thumbs up to show your love.